Hey guys, Shane here with etrailer.com. Today I have a 2019 Jeep Wrangler and I want to walk through how to install REDARC's Tow-Pro Elite brake controller. When we think of a brake controller, we think of a brake controller that looks like this. In the new Jeeps, it is very hard to mount this. These have to be mounted a certain way. If you mount it in the locations where it has to be mounted or where it needs to be mounted, it really gets in the way of your legs if you have the seat all the way up to the dash, or even for somebody who is taller, because the Jeep seats don't go back as far as they used to either. So the Tow-Pro Elite fixes that. We'll take a look down here. This is what our brake controller is going to look like. It's going to take up a lot less cabin space, and it doesn't have to be mounted any certain way. It can really be mounted anywhere as long as this and the back part of it will fit in the spot. The REDARC is going to be just like every other brake controller. It's going to have a proportional mode, but it's going to go one step further. It's going to have a user mode. Proportional mode is going to be for highway use, normal everyday use. When you apply the brakes in the vehicle, it's going to match that pressure on the trailer. User mode. User mode is going to be designed for more off-road use. If we're applying the brakes lightly in the vehicle, it's automatically going to send whatever pressure, or whatever number we have it set at and the gain button, back to the trailer. So it's not matching what we're putting on the vehicle, it's automatically sending the amount of pressure we have set on the dial to the trailer, so that we're not relying on the vehicle to stop the trailer while we're going down that hill on that loose gravel. If you have a blue light, that means you're in proportional mode. The numbers on the dial you would set depending on your load, or depending on the load on your trailer that you're hauling. But what I want to show you is the blue light in proportional mode. When we apply the brake in the vehicle, that blue light is going to go from blue and gradually go up to a solid red. Number 10 is going to be full power for braking on your trailer. We have a manual override. You can see how it went from blue to purple to red. So now, user mode. As I mentioned, for off-road use. To put it in user mode, take your foot off your brake, put your foot on your brake, you're going to push the knob 2 times within 1 second. It's going to change that light to green. But what you're going to notice is different about user mode is if we have this set at any number, instead of getting that gradual increase or gradual color change, it's going to go from green automatically to red. So it's sending that amount of brake pressure directly to the brakes on the trailer. It's not gradually building the brake pressure like it is in proportional mode. Same thing with manual override. Directly to that color. Now I kind of brought up manual override. Manual override is used when you just push the button. Where on a normal brake controller you'd have to slide a lever over. All you do is push, you can see it changes the color of the LED light to whatever number you have it set at. What the manual override does, let's say you're pulling a trailer going down the highway, it starts to sway a little bit. You can touch the brake controller or the manual override without applying the brakes on the vehicle. Because if your vehicle or your trailer starts to sway and you apply the brakes in the vehicle, you're just going to cause your trailer to sway more. What we want to do is we want to get braking to the trailer, but not from the vehicle. That's where your manual override comes in. You simply touch it, and it's going to send the brake pressure to the trailer without applying the brakes in the vehicle. As far as the installation process, pretty simple and straightforward. You mount your control knob somewhere on your dash. You're going to have an operating unit that can be mounted in any orientation up underneath your dash. You just want to make sure it's mounted to a solid surface, not to any factory wiring, so that it can learn the direction of travel that the vehicle is going. Now that we've taken a look at some of the features, let's walk through how to get it installed. To start our installation, we need to determine where we're going to mount our knob. This being a manual, right in here is probably a good place to put it. We're going to go ahead and pull this off to make sure we have enough room, and then we can start getting it installed. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to grab it and we're going to pull up. Like that. then we can just set it to the side. We're not going to be able to take it all the way off because of the boot here, but we'll just slide it over to the side. Make sure we have enough room. You're going to have a plug here, and this is for your lighted cup holders. All you're going to do is you're going to push down right here on this back side, and you'll pull it right out of that connector. Set to the side, and where this comes down is right in this area. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get our hole here because we have enough room. We're going to set it in place and see if it hits this. If it does, we might have to notch this out just a little bit. Other than that, I think we can get our wiring ran right back here, and it should come out right on the back side of the dash over here. But let's start with our hole we need to drill for our control knob. So with your brake controller, you're going to have a little piece that looks like this. This is actually a ring that's going to go on the outside after we get our hole drilled. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as my template. So I'm going to take some painter's tape and tape this in the spot that I'm going to put it, and then I'm going to drill out the center of each one of those holes. What I don't want to do is don't damage that ring, because it is going to go on. So we want one that's going to fit. We can always open the holes up a little bit bigger later on. Now this one just fits inside this hole. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start this so I can make my center mark. And I'll switch my drill bit, go back to the small one. And then we'll remove that piece and drill it out to the correct size. If you reach underneath, take these clips and just push them together, you can pop them right out of the center here and pull this whole piece out. I'm finding that this rubber top is causing me an issue with getting the top two pieces to fit flush on the brake controller switch itself. So that's why I'm pulling it out. I'm going to set it up on a table and kind of work with it and see what it's going to take to get that to fit in there. So what I did is I took a step bit and I opened up this bottom hole just a little bit more, and then took a utility knife and kind of opened that top one up. If you notice these little wings on here, what I did is I cut them down about halfway, because the thickness of this panel and this rubber piece, I couldn't get it to go through far enough to get this nut to grab onto it. If you cut those down about halfway, and you can just take a utility knife, and they're real simple, you just push it until it gets into this edge, and then cut down on it, it'll knock that little piece off. You're going to take the LED light, it's going to go up towards a small hole, like that. I'm going to take this piece, it's going to fit right over top of that light. I'm going to take this nut, we're going to take a 12mm wrench. We're not going to tighten this down. We're just kind of snugging it up. The reason we want to do that, take this knob, turn it all the way to the left, take the 0, line it up with the light, and put it in place. And what you want is you want to be able to push it. So if you get this on and you can't push it, turn that nut another time, put it on there. You want to make sure you can do that. That's going to be your override button. I'll set this back in place. And it looks like it is going to hit it. We're not going to be able to push this all the way back down in there. So, what we're going to do is we're just going to notch this out. right here on top. And I'm just using a rotary tool with a cutting blade. Well, we've got it notched out. Go ahead and test fit, see if we have to make any other adjustments. And it fits right in there. This is going to be our plug that's going to go into the back of our control knob and into the back of our control unit, which we're going to be mounting under the dash here in a few minutes. One end's going to have a right angle, one end's going to be straight. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use a right angle on the knob, the straight end on the control unit. I have to get this down underneath and over to this side of the dash. So what I'm going to do is I'm using an airline tube, and right down here, it's open. You can take this and it comes out right there. Now, instead of trying to get this up through here, I'm going to take this end and I'm going to tape it on there and pull it through and over here. You can see I've got my wire through. What you might have to do is pop your carpet off on this corner. The whole underside of your dash is open. You have your box that runs up to all your vents and everything. If it feels like it's getting stuck, just reach under with your pull wire, pull it towards the back or towards the face of your dash, and it kind of comes up like this, and you'll have plenty of room to pull this through. And we'll take the tape off this side and take this wire right along this edge. It's all open. Take it, we're going to tuck it back just like this. Just make sure you give it a second look down in here. Make sure it's not going to hit any moving components. Like we're away from everything. Now we can plug this into the back of our controller and get this mounted in place. Now we've got our plug on, we've got our center piece put back down in place. We can go ahead and snap our boot back into place. And we can move on to mounting the control unit. Now to mount this, we can mount this in any orientation. It can be upside down, it can be turned, it can be sideways, however you want, which makes it nice because we can put it up underneath the dash. The only thing we don't want to do is we don't want to zip tie it to some factory wiring. We're going to pull this panel off. We're just going to grab the top corners and just work our way down. Once we get that off, there's a bracket here, and then right behind it there's another bracket. And it's just an aluminum bracket. What I'm going to do is on the back one, or the most forward one, I'm going to take a couple of self-tapping screws. I'm going to mount it right to that bracket. It stays hidden up behind the dash, out of the way of the driver's feet, and it's secured. Like that. Take this end. I'm going to run it up over top of that, and it's going to plug in right in the back side, or right on the side there. Now what we need to do is we need to pop out this panel and this one. This one, we just pop it off like that. We can pull this little rubber plug out here and set it aside. We're going to have a nut right here. Use a 10mm socket if you can't get it off with your fingers. Pull that off. You need to disconnect your wiring for your door. What you're going to do is you're going to push up on that red tab. Right down here in the center, you're going to push down, and it's going to release this white lever. Rotate that up, Slide your plug out. Slide that loop off of that hanger. And we're going to pull this panel off. You just pull out. I'll be able to. It's going to be held in a couple of places. You may have to pop the wiring off of the sidewall to get that out. Pull this panel out and set it aside. Our customer previously had a brake controller in here, and they wanted to upgrade it because they didn't like it, which is great because the wiring is already ran. There's going to be 4 wires on the back of the plug that goes into the main unit. You're going to have a red one. It's going to be marked. It's going to say brake light. Blue one is for your brake output. White is going to be your ground. Black is going to be powered by the battery. Your red that goes to your brake light will go to your brake light switch, which in this case, for this vehicle, we cannot tap into the factory brake light wire. So it would require, or it does require, a stoplight switch. And all that does is mounts on the brake pedal arm, and it has a plunger on it. Every time the brake pedal is pushed, that plunger comes out, and that's what activates the brakes on your trailer. The brake output is going to connect to the brake output wire going to your 7-pole plug on the back of the vehicle. In our case here, because it did not have a tow package, it required an ETBC7. So if your vehicle doesn't have a factory tow package, you're going to need the ETBC7 in order to get a brake controller to work on a trailer. If you do have a factory tow package, your plug's going to be right up in this corner against your sidewall. The nice thing is, here, is that these wires that were on the previous brake controller are already ran for us. This red one goes up to my stoplight switch or my brake light signal, which is going to be the red wire on our plug. The black wire is running up to the positive side of the battery. The blue wire is our brake output, which is this white wire here. You can see it's got the blue wire on it. This is running back to our 7-pole plug, which is giving our brakes the signal on our trailer. And then finally we have our ground, which is going to be this white wire here. Our ground wire has to be grounded at the battery. To get all these wires outside of the vehicle, including the one coming from your brake light switch that's going to the positive side of the battery, because it has to be powered also, right underneath of this seat, your driver's seat, if you pull up your carpet there, there's a little plug. Put a couple holes in it, and you can take all these wires and feed them in. You can follow the frame rail either back to the 7-pole plug or up into your engine compartment and across over to your battery. That's where your plug or your wires are going to come out. Again, follow the frame rail up, run them right up the firewall, over to the negative and positive side of the battery. Your other wire, you run it out, you run it back to your 7-pole plug that's mounted on the back of the vehicle. So we'll plug our next plug into the side of our main unit. There. And take our wires. You get those routed so they're out of the way. And this is where I don't want to confuse you. White to white. We have 2 white wires. one of them was cut off with the blue wire, so that's why we know that we're using this one. Blue to blue light. The power wire coming from, or going to my battery from the old brake controller, I did disconnect it from the positive side of the battery. So you want to make sure you do that before you connect these, because it is fused. If you're doing this with the ETBC7, it is going to have to be fused to the battery. So just make sure that you follow those instructions on when you're running that power wire up there and getting the fuse put on. The ETBC7 is going to come with what you need. We'll do black to black. Then our red wire goes to the red wire coming from our switch. Now before we put all our panels back in place, I'm going to go ahead and hook the power back up to the battery. Make sure we're getting power to our controller. Now what we're going to do is we're going to push that, and hopefully we see our LED light. And there it is. So you can see how our light is changing blue to green. That means we need to calibrate it. We got our trailer hooked up. We're going to go ahead and run through that again. Hit our brakes about 20 times. Allow it to calibrate, and once it goes to a solid color, it's been calibrated. When it goes from blinking, green to blue, or blue to green, and it goes to solid blue, that means it's been calibrated and you're ready to go. That's going to do it for a look at and installation on the REDARC Tow-Pro Elite brake controller on a 2019 Jeep Wrangler.